Give them the love that I give you. Such profound words, huh? They really struck me as we sang those. Give them the love that I give you. So, and that's what Jesus was doing as well, wasn't it? Giving the love that he received from God, he was giving, sharing with us. And I think that's our mission. That's the sermon. I don't need to say any more, but I will. I've got my notes, so I don't talk too long, and I've got a secret person in the audience to wave to me when I get over an hour and a half. So, no. I want to mention right at the beginning, I want to repeat the words of somebody, or two people, and I want to mention three women. One of them is in the room with us today. Now you're all wondering which one it is. One's not with us, and one's in the spirit world. So, and you may recall Anne gave a sermon a few weeks ago, and also Inga Chandler gave a sermon. And what did they say in their sermon, which I'm going to repeat now? Can anyone like to hazard a guess? What they both said in their sermon? You obviously weren't listening to the sermons carefully enough. Well, they both said that everybody should give a sermon. And I want to repeat that now. And I've said it many times. And it was the reason, if you caught the conversation on WhatsApp, it was the reason I instituted the sharing before the service in Hatch End. And I'm reminded again of it now, in preparing myself to give the sermon, how important it is, and it's kind of testimony to the fact of these lines from Jesus. He who loses his life will gain it. Because you feel like you're losing your life. I do anyway when I have to give a sermon. I feel like, I'm going to die, But also in terms of the preparation, you have to really kind of wrench yourself, wrench your heart and look at yourself, and then also ask, and I pray today that someone, if not all of you, can receive something from my words today that will bring you closer in your relationship with God, or maybe help you in your development, let's put it that way, in a more, in that kind of context. Also, Mary Franklin always said, I don't know if you remember her saying this, but she said, everybody should have a sermon prepared, one sermon. Everybody should have at least one sermon, she used to say. Now think about this, okay, even if you're not going to come up, stand here and give a testimony for 5 minutes maybe before our service next week and share something, if you prepare as if you're going to, if you prepare so that if anybody told you, can you give a sermon, you'd be, yes, I can, because I've got one in my heart. I've prepared one in my heart and mind. Just prepare it. You don't have to give it. You have to be ready to give it. Prepare it. Take it seriously. How serious are you when you come here today? Is it just something you do because everybody comes here on a Sunday? If you have to stand up here and give the sermon, you'll be very serious. But we should be just as serious, really, in our listening as well, because God wants to speak to us all the time. That's the reality. But we prepare this special time to receive a message. So we should prepare ourselves to receive that message, not just to give it. So already I've wandered from all these notes. So, but I've said many of the things. Yeah, the paradox is always, in my experience, and always I try and speak from my experience, is when you're ready to lose something, you get something. So you look at kind of losing your life and you actually gain it, if any of you watch me on Facebook, you know what I'm doing right now. I'm doing kind of relatively extreme things for my age, maybe. But But last year when my son and I were at the base of Ben Nevis camping, and I looked up at this mountain, I can't do that. I'm going to die if I go up there. But we did it anyway. And the reward from doing it is fantastic. The actual, you get all sorts of things that tell you can't do something, or why you shouldn't do. I can't be bothered, or why bother practicing this or doing that. But actually, if you do it, you'll gain the reward, whether it's learning a musical instrument is something simple as that, or, I've got to put in the practice, whether it's a guitar or flute or whatever you play. But if you put in the practice, if you do it, you gain the rewards from it. So that's the kind of the point. So David's already told us about Easter. We know it's Easter, and Easter is a very important time for us. It's a very important time for all Christians. Probably more, it's probably the most important time for Christians. And like David, I never understood why it was called Good Friday. And today's all about the resurrection. So I think it's always a danger when we speak about these things. We can easily trivialize these things, but we each have to take them. We each have to take the story of Jesus in our own lives, in our own way, at whatever point it speaks to us. So we could get very serious and very heavy about it. In fact, my original title was Sacrifice, but fortunately we have miscommunicated somehow, and you got the Bible quote instead. But I think Jesus' life and mission and the whole story, it can be a paradigm for our own life in a very simple way and very small way, or in a very big way. Few of us are asked to literally sacrifice our lives physically, but in some ways living a life which is noble is more difficult than sacrificing your life. Of course, the value of a person also is the key thing here. So Jesus' value was immeasurable, and for him to sacrifice that life, we can't even talk about, really, But what we're called to do is to fulfill Jesus' mission. Just as our father, Reverend Moon, met Jesus on an Easter morning, and he was asked to take on that mission. We're all being asked to take on that mission. And the way we take on that mission may be very, very simple. And it's something we can do every day. And then in the words of that song, give them the love that I give you. We can do that every day, every moment of our lives. We can seek to share that love. So, we talk about praying constantly, but prayer is love. We say God is love. Well, if we're close to love, we're close to God. We're praying. If we're trying to live in love, it's the same as praying. How about loving life? When we go out, as we drove here today, and we saw the blossom on the trees, and we appreciate the beauty. We appreciate what God has given us. And we thank God. You know, when I see beautiful trees, in my heart, I'm thanking God. I don't have to say it. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the gratitude and the love. And that is what we need to propagate. We need to propagate that to others, share it with others, instead of moaning. You know, I don't know about you, but I have work colleagues, because I still do a little bit of work, and they like to complain all the time. And I keep reminding them, you should be happy you've got a job to complain about. Of course, I'm not always liked for those, because people love to complain. They get into this mode of complaining. And so the news is the same. So for the last 3 years, I got fed up of listening to the news. I probably told several of you before, I got fed up of it. So I haven't listened really actively to the news for 3 years. And I feel a lot better for it. I focus on what I can do rather than worry about what other people haven't done, because that's mostly what they talk about on the news, all the failures, all the problems. Rather focus on what we can do for others, what I can do for myself, for my health, for my well-being, for others' health, for others' well-being, to bring joy to others' lives. You know, it's far better to focus on that. So I was going to read something. Where's the reading? First of all, I'll just read a quote from, have you heard of Leo Buscaglia? Has anyone heard of Leo Buscaglia? I can recommend his books, if you can remember that name, Leo Buscaglia. He talks about love. A total immersion in life offers the best classroom for learning to love. I'll repeat that. A total immersion in life offers the best classroom for learning to love. There's another person I can recommend, and I can't remember his name, but the book is called The Untethered Soul. Have any of you read The Untethered Soul? A book I can recommend. He's not a unificationist, so he has different ideas. It's okay. Different ideas are fine, you know. Open yourself to different ideas. I can recommend it. One of the things he recommends in his book is a total commitment to happiness. Can you make a total commitment to being happy? He said, if you can make a really serious, total commitment to being happy, you will grow. Because life will throw in your way all sorts of challenges. I like that. It's a great idea. Happiness is something we choose through all the difficulties we go through. Happiness is something we choose. So it's like love. Where's these quotes? You got some quotes up there for me? So actually those first two Bible quotes, they were from a beginning of a section in a book called Home Church. Do you remember that book? Any of you have it? So, and these are some quotes from that book as well. This first quote is Home Church and the Completion of the Kingdom of Heaven. It's from the 1st of January 1979. Even if you lock your door, God comes in every night. Having communion and fellowship with the living God every night should be our way of life. And your home church should be like that. Please have faith in it. Work until it can be done. And then another quote from a speech called The Importance of Prayer. From a speech called The Importance of Prayer from the 15th of April, 79 again. Hypnosis can transfer a person into another state. Have you ever experienced that? I get into a state all the time. That's another story. Hypnosis can transfer a person into another state of consciousness. But how much can prayer change lives? There is no distance or limit to its influence because the power of thought travels everywhere. You can mobilize the entire spirit world by the power of prayer. You have experienced that I will work through your prayers and tell you certain things. There is no limit to the power of prayer. So I've got another reading to do at the end. Maybe I'll finish with that reading. So to love others requires a death of sorts, doesn't it? Anybody who's married knows that, surely. You may have to give up something, you know, or you may have to change something. So love requires that you have a kind of a death of sorts. You have to, you have to die to certain of your old ways, let's say. But not just sacrificing things. I mean, like, there really is a feeling sometimes in our lives when we feel, oh no, it's like if something's not right, you feel like you're dying. You're not literally dying, but inside there's some part of you which you're kind of holding on to. And many of you will probably have heard this story before. Apologies about that. But years ago when we went to Korea for the Brothers Workshop, I remember being on that workshop, and my children were very young at that time. And I really had this sense there in Korea, I'm going to die here. It was a weird, I knew I wasn't physically going to die, but there was like this feeling I'm going to die here. And it was a really strange experience. And I thought, I don't want to die here. I want to go home to my family, It's a really strange experience. But through the experiences I had there, I can say a part of me died. And it wasn't a good part. I shed something there. David was there at the same time. You'll remember that I had all sorts of unusual experiences there, which I won't go into, but this point of a feeling of death. And I've had experiences since then which are similar. So I know when there's a feeling coming to me which feels, this is difficult to talk about because, sometimes things you say can be misconstrued. I don't mean to say you should put yourself in harm's way. But, of course, we have to be rational as well. But many times I've had situations. There was a time years ago when I first became pastor, so that goes back maybe 15 years ago. One day I went for a walk. I wanted to go for a walk. I'd been in the house all day working on the computer or whatever I was doing, and I needed to get out. And I decided I'll go and walk down by the lake, which is about 2 miles from my house. And as I was walking there, this voice kept saying to me, no, don't go. Don't go. You'll die if you go there. I said, what? It was a weird feeling, It wasn't even a feeling. It was more like a voice saying, and I'm reasoning with it. I think that's ridiculous. It's just, I know, but it'll be lonely there. It'll be, that's silly. That's ridiculous. I'm going anyway. I'm not worried anyway. And when I got there, I had this incredible experience at the lake. It was lonely. There was nobody else there. But the lake was there. The fish were jumping, the geese, the swans, the ducks. It was so beautiful. I felt like I was in, these snow domes that you shake and the snow comes down. I felt like I was in like this isolated from all the noise going on around me. It was rush hour and planes were flying and cars. I could hear them outside, but I was like inside this kind of cocoon or snow dome. And I felt, why don't I come here more often? It was like really a feeling of oneness with this lake. And I just prayed and thanked God, and I said, wow, I can die now. I don't need any more. There's nothing more I need in life than this feeling of oneness, where we feel this oneness with God and creation. What more do I need? And as I prayed this kind of prayer, 21, I counted them, 21 parakeets flew over my head and into the sunset, and I was just like, wow. It was just an amazing experience, And that taught me something. It taught me wherever Satan is trying to get you and stop you out of fear, he's trying to frighten you. Father said the last thing that Satan threw at him when he was fighting to discover the principle, do you remember, was waves and waves of fear. He said the waves and waves of fear were so powerful they would have crushed you physically. So whenever you feel this kind of fear coming at you to try and stop you from doing something, know that God is waiting on the other side just for you. He's waiting right there for you. It's a bit like Luke Skywalker in the tunnel, and face your fear, Luke. It's a bit like that. So whenever we feel fear, we should face it square on, and go through it, because on the other side, God's waiting there for us. So it brings us full circle back round to what? Public speaking, giving a sermon. Some people feel they would prefer to die than give a public address, So face it. Face that fear. And, step one, just prepare one. Like Mary said, just have a sermon prepared that you could give any time. It was interesting, actually, being asked to give this sermon, because I think it was straight after Sunday service, it was like a sermon was coming to me. It was like downloading a sermon, Suddenly I started writing in my diary this sermon. It wasn't this sermon, it was another sermon, so I've got another one. So it was kind of interesting. So then, so I was kind of getting back into the mode of giving a sermon. So we have to open ourselves, and the first thing to do is to gear our heart and our mind into doing that thing and preparing ourselves to do it. So, in any task, mental rehearsal is a big part of it. So preparing yourself to do something is the first stage to doing it. And the good thing about it, it's safe. If you've never done it before, just prepare yourself to do it. It's safe. You don't have to do it. You just have to prepare yourself. It's just a step. It's just a step on the way. But it's what prepares you. Before, years ago, when I was in my 30s, I was one of those early 30s. I was one of those people who would I ran away once when someone asked me to give a lecture. I literally vanished for the day because I was so nervous about standing in front of this guest and giving them a lecture. So I understand what it's like to fear public speaking, So I know when people tell me, oh no, I couldn't do it, I understand that fear. But how did I get to the point where I can do it now? Just taking a little step, a step at a time. And it begins just here, in our minds, just imagining. Whatever we want to do, it begins with that one step of just imagining doing it. How would I do it? You ask the question, how? Or what would I say? So you prepare it bit by bit. So, as I said, I can honestly say I've been through many deaths in my life, deaths of things, and it's really necessary in our life of faith, in our life of spiritual growth, to shed things, just like a reptile sheds its skin. We need to shed the things we don't need anymore. Just let it go. Don't fight with it, just let it go. Whether it's a past trauma, whether it's a past accusation from something we've done or haven't done, we've got to let them go. Because God's not there judging us. God is there wanting to forgive us and embrace us. God wants us to be fit and strong, physically and spiritually, So anything trying to hold you back, it's not coming from God. And so we have to go through these letting go. And the biggest thing maybe for some is the death of the ego. Thinking that we're... but ego works both ways as well. The ego that says I'm better or great, this hubris, arrogance. But it can also be the opposite, the flip side of arrogance. Oh no, I couldn't do that. It's, it's not real. Well, anyway, yeah. So where we want to go is into this space where we can be open, where we can be truly open without resistance. Because when we can be open to God's guidance with no resistance, then God can use us. It doesn't matter how God uses us. It may be in a very simple, tiny way, you know. It may be in a huge way. We don't know. But we have to give God that chance to do that. So I've written here, resurrection is finding the glory of life fully every day. How about waking up every morning and saying, how can I find the glory of life today? As we go into doing what may be something very mundane, something we do all the time. But we can, that's a prayer, isn't it, in the morning? Welcome God into our life that day. Live life, live love. How is God guiding you on your path? Be open to it. So one thing, so I finish with a few more words from Father. This is from this book, which is about 30-odd speeches this is from the time Father was in prison. He got this book made when he was in Danbury prison. He got these speeches put together. So this was called God's Fatherland from February 1980. I don't know about you, but through my life, and especially now as I'm getting older, I think to myself, well, what was Father doing when he was my age now? So it's kind of interesting to read these speeches, because Father talks about getting old here, and he was 60 then, so it's interesting. He said, I'm concerned since I'm getting older, you Unification Church members won't pay any more attention to me. That's true, I think so. There are many people who see only that I'm a very controversial figure, and they're glad to hear now I've reached 60, thinking that it will be only a few more years before I'm not around to trouble them anymore. There are many people who follow very complex thinking. On the other hand, you people don't care what they think and just give your single-minded devotion to follow me. You wonder if there isn't any way I could age in reverse, and next year we could celebrate my 59th birthday. Then what about us as members of the Unification movement? Where should we be? You are the champions who are fighting every day, and sometimes you get discouraged. I know that if I were not here on earth with you, your fight would be much more difficult. Isn't that true? Is it true? I think so. It's so different these years since Father's gone, isn't it? I know that if I were not here on earth with you, your fight would be much more difficult. Even though I am an old man, the fact that I am with you is a source of power and inspiration that energizes you and helps you keep going. You need my guidance and direction. When I was a young man, I was pushing you hard and working hard with you. But now I'm an old man, but I'm still pushing you hard. It might not look good. Do you mind? But I know it is a necessity. The world needs a push because time is against us. It is quite true that when you get old, your health declines and you feel less energy than in your younger years. But at the same time, the mission is greater and requires more attention. The situation is imbalanced, with the mission getting bigger and my age getting heavier to bear. So I guess those of us who are over 60 can relate to this much more now than we could when he said those words when we were much younger. Now we can understand a bit more what he was going through. I've been a frontline soldier all this time, and I will remain so. Will you be a burden to me and drag me back, or will you push from behind? Do you want to push me yourself, or bring a nation and your race and mankind to push me? Would you want to mobilize even the spirit world? Would they be on my side? Are they pushing me? Who is the head man in the spirit world? Would you want spirit world to be pushing on the front line, or would you rather be on the front line and have them push you from behind? Those in the spirit world are different in one respect. They are not limited by time and space. They can continue 24 hours a day, and that is their advantage over us. Do you think spirit men need time to go to bed? Is that good or not? When you are really involved in some game or activity, you forget about eating or sleeping. If you are intoxicated in your mission to that degree, then working 24 hours a day might not be a burden. But how serious and intoxicated are you with your mission? Have you felt that mission God gave you? Have you felt that mission God gave you is so exciting and wonderful that you forget about eating and sleeping? So I thought if I finish on Father's words, you can't. But our mission, if you think about our mission from, even the smallest point, but the smallest point is the biggest point as well, and that's simply, as I stated earlier, our mission is to bring love to this world. So we can do that through our efforts every day, every moment of every day in some way. We can remind ourselves that constantly. And then from that point on, bigger things just fall into place because everything's in tune. Everything comes into tune with God's love. Please join me in a closing prayer. Dear God, our Heavenly Parent, this is a special Sunday, Easter Sunday, when we celebrate Jesus' resurrection. And in so doing, he wanted to liberate us to understanding that life is much more. And he was the total example of your love in physical form on this earth. I pray that we can emulate that love, that we can open ourselves to that love and open ourselves to your guidance to be there as your representative when you need us to be. We want to pray for all our brothers and sisters who are not well at this time, particularly William and Andrew and others. We want to pray that your healing hand can be with them and that they can be completely wrapped in your goodness and your love. We want to offer ourselves to you for this week ahead and be your representative in any situation, in every situation where you need us, where you need your face, your love, your heart to shine. Let us be a light to this world. All this now, I want to pray and report in my name, Jeff Bateman, father of a blessed central family.